Hi folks, one of two things is going to happen here. If you can see that book behind me, Gallus, the book called Gallus, the big yellow title there, if it's the right way around, if the writing's the right way around, you can read that, and you can read, see that's a Manchester United pennant I've got hanging behind me, and to the side of that there is the back of a Tifo card, the big blue card that we all held up when Manchester United first came to Ibrox in European competition, the first time we met Manchester United in the European competition. We held up that Tifo and the lyrics of the Blue Sea of Ibrox. I think that was the first time we kind of revived the song. The blue, blue, blue Sea of Ibrox, the lyrics are on the back of it. So it's quite ingenious. You're holding it up and you're actually looking up the lyrics. But of course it was, it was kind of dark when you're holding it up because it's blocking out the light. And I had to we didn't have the phones in the days, so I had to get the matches out and just kind of light it, and it all went wrong for there. But I managed to retrieve that one at the end of the game. If you can see that, that's all the right way around, you can read all that perfectly, then I'm sorry, my mouth is completely out of sync already with the words, the noises that are coming out of it. Not that any of you should really pay too much attention to my cooping during this podcast. Please just listen to it. Don't look. It's not a pretty sight at the best of times. But if that's all back to front, if the writing behind me is all back to front, if you can't read the titles of any of the books up there without having to think, as if an ambulance is behind you, kind of thing, or ambulance is in front of you and you can see it back to front, but you know what it actually is. If you're having to deal with that kind of thing, then my mouth will be completely in sync with the noises that are coming out of it. And I think that just kind of sums up how it could go for Rangers tomorrow at Old Trafford. Rangers are a bit more experienced. Certainly, Philip Clement is a bit more experienced when it comes to football management than I am when it comes to doing a podcast, as you can obviously tell. But he hasn't quite got it down yet. Not to the same extent that I haven't got podcasting down, but he hasn't quite got everything he needs to be the Rangers manager he wants to be right now. But one thing he does have is a fantastic record away from home in European competition. He hasn't lost yet in 7 games, hard games away from home as Rangers manager in Europe. So it's all built up to be, this is a crowning moment. This is probably the biggest one-off results outside actually winning the European trophy in 1972. This could be the biggest single one-off result in Rangers history, in European history. Certainly one that I would thoroughly enjoy, or this could be the moment that it all comes crashing to an end, and also Manchester United, who look like they're there for the taking, everything that's going on with them just now, the pressure they're getting off the media, the poor results that they're getting primarily at home. This could be the moment that Ruben Amorim, their latest manager this season, turns it round, starts the rebuild properly by taking it out on our asses. Tomorrow night we could get a total doing. Kind of sums things up. Manchester United, a team we are united with only in their hatred of You'll Never Walk Alone, and their love of red and black. Please, Rangers, tomorrow night, going to wear the white away kit, going to wear the second kit. White away kit, blue shorts. White away shirt, blue shorts. White socks. Don't wear the white socks with the home top. I hate it when we do that. I think we did that the time we drew 0-0 at Old Trafford. Fair enough, maybe it's lucky. I think we did it then. I hate it when we wear the white socks with the home shorts and shirts. At Tynecastle, for example, it just looks kind of it looks kind of vanilla, even though it's not in any way vanilla coloured. I would rather we just went honestly wearing the white socks that are meant to be away socks with the home kit. That's just because Man Utd love the red and black, so we're not going to get to wear the red and black. I think we were all blue, the blue socks. We're not going to get to wear the red and blue socks. We both hate You'll Never Walk Alone, and us and Man United both love a bit of R&B, those red and black socks. And if we can't wear those tomorrow, maybe it'll be the all blue kit, but I think we lost 3-0 in that. Under Eck when we went down there in the Champions League for the first time. Don't just wear just go for the proper the away kit. That's pretty smart. We've gone from club cup winners versus Aberdeen last Wednesday night, and then we've gone into the Scottish Cup versus Fraserburgh, who I was noting were wearing a very Grimsby Town kit, and I was saying how Grimsby Town wear the same kind of kit as Drossen Winton Rovers, a lot of black and white, but maybe with red socks, as Fraserburgh were wearing on Sunday in that Scottish Cup tie at Ibrox. I thought maybe it's a maritime thing, because of Drossen, my hometown, is a harbour town, a port town. The ferry's supposed to leave from there for Arran, but let's not get into that. And Grimsby Town actually recorded the record attendance ever at Old Trafford, an FA Cup semi-final, 1939. That's the biggest attendance ever at Old Trafford. That's 76, nearly 77,000. FA Cup semi-final against Wolves, 1939. And that was Grimsby Town. We're in the same kind of kit. Fraserburgh, the last team we played, and we played Wolves in the semi-final of the Cup, Winners' Cup, the competition for people who win the FA Cup. You know, we played Wolves the first time we played an English team in Europe. We're playing an English team in Europe this week, and we're going to Old Trafford where that record attendance was set in. We've just played Fraserburgh, who played in a Grimsby Town kit, and Grimsby Town played in that. I'm trying to make this work. We've also gone from the Club Cup, Winners' Cup thing, where I was saying how we'd played teams, so many teams this season. Manchester United are going to be, I think, the fourth team that have won the Cup, Winners' Cup that we've played this season, having played Spurs and having played Dynamo Kiev and having played Aberdeen. So we're going from that to trying to beat three different teams that have won the European Cup or Champions League in the same season for the first time since, I think, we beat Porto, Feyenoord and Celtic in the 2019-20 season, that would be. But we've beaten Steaua Bucharest this year, one of the kind of versions of Steaua Bucharest, who the original version won the European Cup in 1986. We've beaten them 4-0 this season. Celtic, who won the European Cup in 1967, apparently. We beat them 3-0 in the 2nd of January. And now we've got Manchester United, who won the European Cup in 1968, and then in the Champions League European Cup 1999 and 2008. They've won it 3 times. We're trying to beat them. Ajax and Porto are still in this Europa League group stage. They're in this Europa League group stage, so there's a chance we could meet them if we progress as we should do. It could be a season. We beat PSV Eindhoven and Juventus famously in the 78-79 European Cup, but none of them had actually won the European Cup yet. It was the 80s before either of those great clubs would win the European Cup. We're still waiting, so this is the kind of stuff we do. It's a kind of annexing of winning the European Cup by beating teams that have won the thing, 100,000 capacity. At Old Trafford, they're talking last week, Man United, about how they want to raise the capacity to 87,000, 89,000 or something for Old Trafford. They're going to move it or rebuild it, maybe try and get up to 100,000. Welcome to the 20th century. Rangers were getting crowds like that against Hibs in the 1950s. 118,000, that's our record crowd, is like basically 40,000 bigger than yours. Old Trafford, bigger than yours. Manchester United. I'm basically going to take a whitey through this. If you're watching this pod just now, you should know you're not allowed to watch the Fat Egg pod. The Fat Egg podcast, where you're only allowed to howl at the screen if you've had your bowel screened. But I'm trying to work in these. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get a few kind of one-liners to make it more. It's just today with the demographic of the folk, the kind of age group, my age, and the folk that I'll keep working. I'll keep working on them. But you're only supposed to be watching this podcast if you are prepared. No, they're the naloxone. I told you that about the fella in the bookies. When I worked in the bookies, the guy took the overdose in the toilets, because that's what happens in bookies. And we thought he was dead, and we got the ambulance guys in, and they came in and they hit him with that thing where he just revived, and he was totally raging because his heroin high had been ruined, but his life had been saved. But he just stormed out. Is it naloxone or noxalone? I can't remember exactly what it's called. But the police got a quick wait recently. Or the police in Scotland got it all handed out to them. So if they meet somebody who's OD'd on the heroin or whatever, they can just hit them with this and they get revived. I'm probably going to, you know that I love talking about Rangers, you know that I love talking about European football, you know that I love talking about English clubs in Europe, maybe in particular. Really love talking about Rangers in Europe. Rangers versus an English club. I would take a wee whitey, and you have to be kidding. You know you should. When I take a whitey, when it gets too much for me, you've got to be ready to save my life with a wee bit. It's not a lot of some, but it's domestic away form. Just inject me in the veins of the domestic away form, and I'll probably kind of come back round. I mean, they're talking about Alex Ferguson, that documentary that's been out about him recently, the icon of Manchester United, most successful manager in the history of British football. Bob Paisley's won European Cup 3 times. European Cup / Champions League. Bob Paisley won it 3 times. He's the most successful manager in the history of British football. Don't let anybody tell you different. Alex Ferguson obviously won the Cup Winners' Cup as well as the 2 Champions Leagues he won while he was Manchester United manager, and he won another Cup Cup at Aberdeen. Maybe everything he did at Aberdeen, winning 3 league titles and 3 Scottish Cups and a League Cup and that kind of thing, and a European trophy while you're a manager of anybody other than Rangers or Celtic in Scotland is a phenomenal achievement. But let's not start kidding ourselves on. I mean, Bob Paisley also won the UEFA Cup while in charge of... Well, too many starters. I got... Hibs. We're 2-0 up against Hibs. And then we went 3-2 up as well at the end, but we still dropped points. That's brought us back round. We're going for the theatre. Got to the theatre of dreams. We're hoping that it's not going to be the theatre of dreams for us, and we want to turn it into the theatre of nightmares for Manchester United. I talk a lot about cinema. I talk a lot about movies and all that. I go on and on about films and all that. The greatest film ever made, by the way, is Shoah. I think the second part of Shoah, Claude Lanzmann's Shoah, is on Simone de Beauvoir's ex-lover. Or, no, the two of them are dead. That's why they're ex-lovers. But I think they were lovers to the very end. But he shared it with Sartre. This is an amazing dude, Claude Lanzmann. But he did Shoah, which isn't a Hollywood movie by any man. I mean, it's strictly speaking a documentary. It's so much more than that. In a week, I can't let it go. Elon Musk is doing Nazi salutes, and everybody thinks just the wokes and the liberals are getting a bit uptight because of Donald Trump. The guy's absolutely insane. This is it. It is happening. It's been happening for years, but it's going full force now. It's because it's Holocaust Memorial time of year, and then it's going to be the 80th anniversary, the liberation of the death camps in Germany. Watch Shoah. There's no footage. There's no archive footage. It's as much about the late 70s and the early 80s as it is about the Holocaust. But part 1 was on BBC 4 last night. Part 2's on tonight. That is the greatest film ever made. But I have, it's not the most enjoyable, I can't say it's my favourite because it's so dark, but it's brilliant. It is brilliant. It's just, you can't stop watching it. It's 8-9 hours long, but you can't stop watching it. And neither should you. But I talk so much about cinema, I talk so much about film, with slipping on those kind of wanky references, but I'll have you know, actually, what do you know about cinema? Well, actually, I used to work beside a director. I worked with a director, a film director, who had his work shown at the Cannes Film Festival. Do you know that? You know, Multiple Man 78, one of the regulars here on the Fat Egg podcast. He will know who I'm talking about. I worked beside him in the payments section for the kind of admin building for the bank, Bank of Scotland, HBOS, whatever. I can't remember who it was at Lloyd's. We got taken over by. I can't remember. It was one of the jobs, kind of glorified temping job. But Stephen made his own films in his own time. He worked shorter hours than everybody else because he was doing it for real. He was going out there and he was making movies and short films he specialised in. Probably because that was all he could afford to do at that time. He was just a young man at that time. That's a few years ago. I'm sure my age now. But he made these short films. And in my leaving card, Stephen wrote, probably the nicest thing he's ever said about me was, to the only guy I know who can talk about the Nouvelle Vague without sounding like a wank, which I thought was it's one of the greatest compliments. He was lying as well. I did sound like a wank. It probably didn't sound like too much of a wanker talking about the French New Wave because I know so little about it. But it was to get that from a bona fide, genuine film director. That Stephen would show us his work. He would let us see stuff. It's phenomenal. You know, a lot of it he's doing on his own. He's starring in it as well as filming. It's taken him months and months to put these films together. Sometimes he's getting like film students and that to act, and drama students, etc., to act in these things. A lot of them kind of silent. And he told us a story. Good Celtic man as well, Stephen, but just a really, really lovely bloke. A man following his passion, following his dream, and he told me this story that I hope he doesn't mind me telling you if he's out there. I kind of lost touch with Stephen, and probably because he wanted to. But I can't remember his second name for the life of me, which really it pees me off. I should have looked that up before I started talking about this. But the story, I'll never forget this. He was telling me one of his short films gets selected to be shown at the Cannes Film Festival. It's unbelievable, you know. It's like if somebody said, Alex, see your pod, it's up for a Pulitzer or something like that. It was just phenomenal. And having seen his work, I'm so glad it got the recognition it deserved. But what happened? This amazing moment for the guy. he went to the Cannes Film Festival. I don't know how to pay his own way or whatever he get paid to go out there. I can't really remember. But the thing I remember is because his stuff's so kind of esoteric and so, I say a lot of it, there was no dialogue, and a lot of them are kind of silent, or he's got the music, very moody music as well. He sits there in the Cannes film in the theatre where it's about to get shown in this short film section. This is the moment, and the projectionist showed his film at the wrong speed, and because it's so kind of surreal, for a totally pathetic word to describe his movies, it kind of worked as well. It was, you could see why no one was correcting this fault. Nobody thought it was getting played at the wrong. They was obviously weren't paying enough attention. They hadn't spoken to Stephen about it, but he's sitting there while this thing get played. His work get played at the wrong speed right the way through. So it was maybe a 10-minute film and it lasted for 20 minutes because it's a short film category or whatever that he's in, and it's just a living nightmare. There was nothing he could do. He couldn't go up and start shouting and screaming. There was nobody to talk to. There was nobody to say this is wrong. So he's going out there just thinking, this should be the greatest moment, the high point of my life. And I hope he's had many more since then. He should have, because his work is absolutely sensational. Some of the best films I've ever seen. And it's a double insult to him for me to then use that as a metaphor, as an analogy for Rangers in Europe. But my personal experience, I've probably put as much effort into, ranting and raving and following Rangers and writing about Rangers in Europe and writing about European club competition. I remember being on, I feel as if the closest I can get to that experience, it's something I always think of when I remember we drew Liverpool in the Champions League. When we drew Liverpool in the Champions League group stages, our first time back in the Champions League group stages since before the horrors of liquidation, the horrors of bankruptcy. When Rangers died, I never felt more alive than when we got Liverpool in the Champions League group stages. And I was on Gersnet doing the preview for the preview pod for Gersnet. And I just started talking about how I'd grown up with Liverpool, the team of my youth, when I was a kid, the first European Cup final, the first European final. I remember watching the first European match I remember watching was Liverpool winning the 1977 European Cup final, beating Borussia Mönchengladbach 3-1 in Rome, and I fell in love with the Borussia Mönchengladbach kit because it was so foreign. It was green and white as well. It was mostly white, we heavy green trim, but a black there as well, but it was just so foreign and so sleek, and so, I want that. But Liverpool won that game 3-1, and they retained that European Cup, and they won it again in 81, and they were winning the league all the time. They won the league 3 years in the trot, which hadn't been heard of since the 1930s. They were an amazing side, and watching teams shooting into the Kop, when the Kop it was announced that the Kop was going to get all seated, I went down there. It was a campaign, a pilgrimage. I had to get there. I had to stand on the Anfield Kop, one of the most iconic terrace, rightly or wrongly, in British football, if not world football. And I got down there and I saw them. They get beat 2-1 at home by Sheffield United. Quite amazing. But I saw Ian Rush scoring the opening goal into the Kop. Liverpool shot into the Kop in the first half. Sheffield United had messed them up with the coin toss. And Tor Andre Flo's cousin, I think, scored, Josten Flo, he scored 2 goals in the second half. Roll Fox as well, playing for Sheffield United. He maybe got 1. Anyway, the whole point is to stand in the Kop, and then growing up as a kid just watching so many games where Liverpool are shooting into the Kop, this iconic end. And I was talking about it in this Gersnet podcast, how much I was looking forward to seeing Rangers, just in the first half, attacking the Kop end. What a privilege it was. And I get choked up. I actually started crying. Just for a second, because I'm crying, and I choked it back because it's pathetic. There's so much genuinely bad stuff going on in the world these days that we should all be crying about. That for me to be getting so kind of maudlin and up myself was embarrassing, but it made me that emotional. And as you know, I've mentioned it before, not only did we not register a single shot on the goal at the Kop in the first half, we didn't at any point have the ball. No Rangers player controlled the football in the box at the Kop end, in the 18-yard box at the Kop end at any point in that first half. when we played Liverpool at Anfield. We gave it a wee go in the second half and we only lost 2-0. And that's fine. That's the way it goes. Liverpool had just reached the Champions League final, like 18 months beforehand. They were a great team. But here we were. We played them at Ibrox. We hosted them at Ibrox, and we scored first as well, which was, as you remember, Scotty Arfield. It was amazing. And then they just kept scoring, and they just kept scoring, and they beat us 7-1, and it turned into the worst night of my life, from my worst ever experience, watching Rangers. It's insulting maybe to Stephen to compare, my pain watching a football team to his own work, but I put so much into watching Rangers, and I'd gone from crying with joy at the prospect of seeing Rangers taking on Liverpool in the Champions League to that turning into an actual living nightmare. And I think we've got the same thing going on now. I think we've got the same thing going on this Thursday night. It could go either way. This could be the result for Rangers if we were to win this game. And so much points to us winning this game that it's actually frightening. It makes me think we're going to get hammered. It's just too. It's like that bit in a movie, the old movies where the guys would walk into town, the bad guys would walk into a new town in a western, and that old line about it's quiet here. Yeah, too quiet. Like there's going to be an ambush, and I feel as if it's almost too noisy, too negatively noisy around Ruben Amorim and his Manchester United side for us not to be walking into an ambush tomorrow night, particularly with the players that we have missing. And the fact that we've set ourselves up with this great away record under Philippe Clement, it's probably just me guarding against contemplating truly how much it would mean if we could actually beat Manchester United at Old Trafford. That's one I would definitely take to the grave, but I'm just hoping Manchester United don't kill us tomorrow night. It could go either way, folks. It could go either way. As I say, when I was a kid, it was Liverpool, and it's amazing. We've done that whole thing, that whole Nick Hornby fever pitch thing to death on this podcast, or one of us has. How your youth, you can't escape what clubs mean to you, because so much of it instinctively is formed by what's happening. Like me having more respect maybe for Dundee United than Aberdeen, or more fear of going to these venues than perhaps Rangers should have, because I happened to grow up. I went from an actual kid to a teenager in the years where Aberdeen and Dundee United won 4 out of 6 league titles between them, and Aberdeen won that Cup Winners' Cup, and they won 3 successive Scottish Cups, beating us in 2 of the finals. That kind of thing. I maybe get more because that's just when I was like kind of going from 10, 11, 12 years old to 13, 14, and that's when you soak stuff in emotionally and what have you. It was Liverpool. I've no favourite English club. I don't support any English club. I love watching the English game, en masse. I love everything about the English game. Well, not everything, obviously. There's bad sides to everything. But I think a lot of us in Scotland, you watch sports scene, and then you would watch Match of the Day. The highlights of Match of the Day would be on the end of sports scene, and then we got Match of the Day. And so many kids now are more interested in Man City and Liverpool than they are in Rangers or Celtic. But it's something that's in the blood. Almost always a fascination with the English game, and just as I can't, Manchester City obviously have got problems where they got their money, but Manchester City have just become the first English club to win 4 straight titles. Liverpool won it 3 in a row. Man Utd won it 3 in a row latterly under Sir Alex Ferguson, and we had Arsenal and Huddersfield doing it. Herbert Chapman involved in I think 2 of each of the 3, the 20s and the 30s. But it was an amazing thing for any club to win the double in England. I don't remember. I remember Spurs and Arsenal being held in great reverence. Their teams of 61 and 71 for having won the league and the FA Cup double in England. That was a kind of sacred thing. And then Liverpool won it in 86, and then this kind of started happening regularly down south. It became less and less of an achievement, and it got to the point where Manchester City have actually won a domestic treble. 2019, I think they won a domestic treble, which when I was growing up, it would have been, it happened fairly regularly in Scotland, or it had happened in Scotland, particularly Rangers had won the domestic treble. But the idea that somebody in England would do it was mind-boggling. What would that be like to see that? Well, it happened in 2019, and it was barely noticed. It barely get mentioned because they're so obsessed now. Football's moved on. It's the Champions League and your own league championship, if you're in a big 5, top 5 league. That's all they're really bothered about. But like I said, Chelsea are the first. They've won all 3 of the European trophies that I grew up with. They've won all 3 of them twice each. That just happened out the blue. You know, Chelsea and Man City will always, to me, be kind of yo-yo clubs that have got really big supports and quite a lot of soul in dilapidated but interesting stadiums that have had massive capacities. You know, Manchester United, the biggest crowd ever to watch a Man U home game was at Main Road in the 40s, famously, because Man U, Old Trafford suffered bomb damage. So the biggest crowd at Old Trafford is Wolves against Grimsby, and the biggest crowd ever to watch Man U at home watched them at Main Road. You know, it's I think it was playing Arsenal. I think I was in the kind of 1940s, 47, 48ish, all these kind of things. But Chelsea having their Stamford Bridge, often 100,000 people when they played Dynamo Moscow in that same tour in the 1940s, where we played them at Ibrox in front of 100,000 or 90,000, whatever it was. But in Main Road, the Kippax and what have you. That's the Man City and Chelsea that I will always instinctively think of them as. Manchester United are right in between. Liverpool, to me, are the kings of England. They're the team. But even at that point, when I was watching Liverpool as a kid, watching them win 3 European Cups in the space of 5 seasons, and Nottingham Forest winning 2 in between times. The clamour around Manchester United. When Man United won like an FA Cup, remember they won in 1983, for example, after a replay against Brighton, and it was like Argentina winning the World Cup almost. The English, obviously, they love their national team, and Manchester, the media, it was just Manchester United are the thing in England. And it was one of my first experiences of, but if Liverpool are representing your country and Liverpool are the best in Europe, and consistently the best in Europe as well as the best in England, why are they not getting all the acclaim? We just don't like them. We just don't like Liverpool. We want it to be Manchester United. It would be better suited if it was them, to the agendas that we have, etc. A lot of it to do with the Munich air crash, and a lot of it just to do with the fact even before the Munich air crash in '58, Manchester United were huge. But I watched Man U. It was a kind of fascinating thing. As I was growing up, they could never win the league, and I was really interested in seeing what it would be like when they did, and eventually they won it in 1993. I'm like 23, nearly 24 by that point. So I've still got a bit of the sponge aspect about me, still a young man. But it was like, all right, that's good. Or they're a bit mental. They've gone a bit mad about it. That's fine. And then it quickly became kind of boring to me. But I watched the next 20 years, Manchester United were trying to get into everybody else and try to get into my head, try to get into my soul, try to get into my psyche. They couldn't quite manage it. But yeah, I couldn't deny how brilliant they were under Ferguson as they won league after league and constantly played in the Champions League. You're just sitting and watching the television all the time. I mean, the era of live football, constant live football, it was Manchester United. They were always on the telly because they were playing everybody in the Champions League. They were involved in all the biggest games. And it's quite funny that Liverpool come back and win the European Cup in 2005 again and just won't let it go, just annoying everybody. But here we are playing this. There's no doubt about it. Rangers going to Old Trafford. We are going to what for a lot of Rangers supporters will be the home of European football in Britain, and success in Britain. Guys who are maybe a decade younger than me, guys in their mid to late 40s, they'll have that instinctive thing about Manchester United just being, it's 12 years, I think, since they won the league, Manchester United in England, and that has flown in because I'm an old man. There's no two ways about it. How you doing, folks? This is your Fat Ek. Rangers are off to Old Trafford to see if we can finally score a goal in Manchester at the 4th time of asking in European competition. Preview pod coming to you in association with Gersnet. Gersnet, it was, I got it wrong when I was talking about it on Sunday nights. Gersnet podcast that you can still see, it's still there on the Gersnet YouTube channel as well as other podcast providers. It was Craig, Ben, and Chris Jack, Ben Harshaw and Craig Ray on the podcast, and they gave the Fraserburgh game a good see into, as well as having a wee look ahead to Manchester United at Old Trafford for Rangers, and a few other points in there. Coming to you in association, coming to you sponsored by Gersnet, and also sponsored by Holiday Cottages, where you don't have to meet the owners. I mean, you've got the key fob that you've got to be safe on the door, the front door, next to the front door. You give me the codes over the phone, or you send me the email, and we go in there and we get the key in there. Like, why? Why are you doing that? Because we don't have to meet anybody. We shouldn't have to meet. I don't want to meet the owner and find out that the bedroom we'll be sleeping in was when our mother died, and that's when they done the place up and decided to start renting it out for holiday folk. And I mean, I want to know the details at Ambleside, and it's quite good to know if there's a nice wee pub, in Loughborough or wherever it is we happen to be staying. Long Framlington, that was my favourite. There was actual chickens up in the front door, but I don't want to meet the owners. Even cottages we've been to, because it's coming. This is that's what we're doing. We're doing holidays, something. It's all the telly. It was Christmas and all that. A wee second ago, wee bit of New Year, get the bevy in, and now it's just holidays, and sofas. And it makes me think about usually sometimes at the Easter holidays we'll maybe just go get a wee cottage, get a wee holiday home somewhere. Sometimes go up north, sometimes go somewhere else in Scotland. But most of the time, head over the border. Love a wee trip down to England. Love going down to England. Just have a wee trip there. But a number of times you've got to meet the owner. I don't want to know how long it took you to do the place up. You're supposed to do the place up if you're renting it out as a holiday home. And Largs, did you have a holiday? Like, yeah, I'm for I'm for Ayrshire and she's for the East Coast, but we met at Glasgow, and that's where we stayed. You don't like this? No, I don't like the sectarian thing either. No, it's terrible. It's terrible. You hate the Orange Order and that. Aye, quite right. You're either a bunch of bigots. Aye, totally. No, me. No, I'm a Kilmarnock supporter. No, can we just? We'll water you. We'll water your flowers. Not a problem. No. See, Doc, you're not asking much at all. It's just we're paying you fucking fortune to have this place and all that. Usually, you get wee cards and postcards for the folk that have stayed here. They send you stuff with your eye as well as the money that they're paying you to stay in the place. Because it's just a friendly thing, is it? Well, if it's that friendly, don't charge me then. Don't charge me to stay here. No, that's fine. Sponsored by Holiday Cottages, where you don't need to get involved. I like to go over the border, like a wee trip down south. I will water your flowers, and he seems like a nice guy. And he says we've won more trophies than anybody else in Europe, and he seems quite self-effacing. I think he needs to be a bit more, like Matt Busby did it in a nice way, but he was a con man. He was total spinning stuff, and the same like Ferguson. He was aggressive. He was a con man. I think he needs to be more like that. I mean, it needs to stop being so self-effacing and opening up to the media like that, because they're just going to keep taking. It's not my problem. I just want a nice trip over the border. I want everything to go. We want a result. We want a nice time, and that's all we're interested here. My name is Alec Anderson. I'm a rambler from Manchester way. I get all my pleasure the hard Merlin way. I may be a wage slave on Monday, but I am a free man on Sunday. And Thursday nights are Europa League nights. Want to give a mention to Robert Ryan, Bob, BOAB 10S, at Bob 10S. Robert Ryan, an absolute stalwart of Rangers Twitter, now Rangers X. I've packed it in. Because I saw a few tweets for you there last night about me having a go at Musk and having a go at all the Trump supporters and all that because of the Nazi salute thing and that. So I like your big talk about how you're on Blue Sky now, but you're actually still on Twitter. So much for you. Well, I'm still. I didn't like the Tories for like 14 years. Didn't like the way they were becoming a total cabal of kind of kleptomania. But it's still. I still stayed in Britain. I wasn't going to move away from that, so I'm not going to leave Twitter. I still want to keep my contacts and that and know what's happening. I'm surrounded by nationalists in Scotland. I'm surrounded by SNP wallies. It doesn't mean I'm going to leave Scotland, does it? I live in Glasgow. I'm surrounded by Celtic supporters just because I don't agree with them football-wise. I'm not going to leave Glasgow. The missus should do my absolute none, but I'm not going to leave. Apparently I'm leaving the house. Apparently I've been told that I am leaving there, but I only go on to Twitter to have a wee sneaky look at how everybody's phoning out with each other these days and give a power of abuse to Elon Musk when he starts all that crap. And I saw the other day, unfortunately, that wee Bob, an independent supporter himself, a total Rangers man, a Man City man as well, so he'd be loving this game tomorrow night. A keen punter as well, likes a wee gamble, does Bob, and he also a big Jersnet fan. He used to tune into Jersnet and give us a bit of feedback there. It was always really much appreciated. The last time I was talking to him, he was telling me that he'd never heard of the Beastie Boys, which I just wasn't having at all. So we're having that out with them. But as you might have heard, he had a heart attack on Friday, did Robert, and he's kind of hanging in there. It was touch and go for a while. The latest I've heard is that he's rallied a bit. Things are looking a bit better for him, and I hope that continues and get to argue with Robert again, be it at home park, Yoker when he's watching the Bankies or wherever. I would like to just pass on all the best to him. Hope he's a full recovery and let him know that we're all thinking of him. As the other thing we're all thinking about, of course, is Rangers going to play Manchester United at Old Trafford, but there is other news. We've got a new signing, that is Rafael Fernandes, a 22-year-old Portuguese centre-half, and we got him from Lille, and he won't be playing for us. So that's good to know. I think he's on the Clinton Insiala / Hamza Igaman slow track to... He's been put in a cryo chamber straight away, has Rafael Fernandes, the new centre-back, so we'll find out what's going to happen with him, but I don't think he's going to be turning up at Old Trafford tomorrow night. Well, he couldn't anyway, he's not in the European squad. Alec Lowry has signed for Wycombe, the Glovers, the Hatters. Now they're the chair boys, aren't they? Wycombe Wanderers are the chair boys, I think. So Alec Lowry has signed for them, so that's hopefully the end of that. It's not a loan or anything like that. He's gone. He's signed for Wycombe for an undisclosed fee. We have sold Alec Lowry, so I don't have to hear any more about how the fact that no Rangers manager wants to give him a regular game means somehow they're wrong and us that don't watch him are right about him. He's had a hard time, Alec Lowry, but just like any other young player, he's just gone through I know he lost his mum, I think, last week, and that maybe coincided with his career going a bit, it's not off the rails, and he didn't do as well at Hearts when we loaned him at Hearts as he was expected to do, but he's still fantastic for the B team, but he just couldn't quite make that jump to the B team and was just becoming that mythological thing that goes on with Rangers sport sometimes when the first team aren't doing as well as possible. Alec Lowry should play. We saw him playing for us, we saw him scoring for us in the Scottish Cup against Minnows, we saw him scoring against Hearts at Tynecastle. The game before we went to the European final in 2022, definitely a class act and all the very best of his career. Maybe he'll end up coming back at Rangers. He just probably needs to get away from Scotland, full stop, but I'm personally glad to not have to hear about how Alec Lowry is absolutely brilliant when no Rangers manager seems to want to put him in the first team very regularly. That sounds bitter at Alec Lowry, I don't mean it like that, but it's more kind of bitterness towards that aspect of the support. Queen's Park in the Scottish Cup, we drew Queen's Park in the next round of the Scottish Cup. That's we've got them at Ibrox, so that's continuing our kind of relationship with Hampden this season. A bit intense relationship with Hampden, but it's also weirdly, we're playing them at Ibrox, but obviously Queen's Park are synonymous with Hampden, whether they're renting it out or haven't sold it or whatever's going on just now. They seem to be playing at actual Hampden as much as lesser Hampden, but worryingly also continues, and I hope not as kind of symbiotically, the B team's relationship with the Challenge Cup. The B team beat Fraserburgh 5-0 at home. That home was Forth Bank in the Challenge Cup this season, and the first teams beat them 5-0 at Ibrox in the Scottish Cup. The B team lost. They beat Stenhousemuir, I think, the next round of the Challenge Cup, and then they lost 3-1 to Queen's Park at Lesser Hampden in the next round. I think we had a sending off, or 1-0 up. I think we had a sending off there. Maybe in NCL actually. Before we went down 3-1 eventually. So I hope Queen's Park, the team who won the Scottish Cup, the third most amount of times, they'll be turning up at the team who won the Scottish Cup the second most times in its history. I hope they don't continue the kind of parallels we've been having with the B team's Challenge Cup run in the Scottish Cup this season. That's who we're getting there. Cyriel Dessers, just a wee word about Cyriel Dessers, mostly to tell you that, I said that the third goalie scores against Fraserburgh on Sunday, that he cuts the ball across and it faded into the net. Can I put the fade on it? I'd been listening to Mazzy Star, Fade Into You. I wouldn't just say this, I wouldn't make this up. Fade Into You. It'd come up on my phone when I was playing some music that morning. Mazzy Star, Fade Into You, and that's how big Cyriel finished off his hat trick on Sunday. I think it sums up a lot of the kind of attitudes amongst the support. I was raging. I was raging at half-time on Sunday. I thought we were totally incompetent that first half. I thought we were terrible. The first half against Fraserburgh, a really pathetic performance. So I'm not trying to make out that I knew it was going to end up 5-0 and I'm all pro Cyriel Dessers. He does mind nothing as much as anybody else when he just can't hit the ball first time, when he's going through and goal against Celtic or whatever, he has a chance against Celtic. But I think it also sums up that game. He scored, I have to realise myself, he scored the opening goal of the game like 20 minutes later after that miss he had in the first half. It's like when I saw him getting asked so many times by the media afterwards, there's so much emphasis on social media about the miss he had at the beginning of that game against Fraserburgh. And it was an open goal he missed. And I put so much emphasis on it as well throughout my post-match reaction pod. I'm like, what's wrong with you, Alec? The guy, 20 minutes later, scores the opening goal of the game. He then, sets up another goal, and he gets a goal in the last minute of the game to complete a hat-trick. We won 5-0. He scored 3 of the goals and set one up. He's the centre of everything that we did. He ends up with the captain's armband in that game against Fraserburgh. It's like you're not allowed a mistake at Rangers. It's got to be do everything perfectly or don't do it at all. The clean sheet for the goalie. I was talking about Mason Munn's mistake as well. I didn't actually know it was Mason Munn that made the mistake because as I was saying in my post-match reaction pod for the Fraserburgh game, the boys in front of me were showing me Desser's miss on their phone. They were showing it to each other, and I was kind of looking over. I couldn't help my eyes being drawn to the screens on their phones, and I missed who missed to put Fraserburgh through on goal later in the first half. It was Mason Munn had been a wee mistake, but he keeps a clean sheet as well. And I think we've got to bear that stuff in mind. It's no perfect. You don't get perfection in any game, and you have to look at the overall result. The keeper got a clean sheet. Desser's got himself a hat-trick. Snagging list. Other snagging items from that post-match reaction pod to the Fraserburgh result on Sunday. The author of Gallus, it was Robert McCafferty. He dropped me a line. The author of the book Gallus, I've forgotten that. It's Michael McEwen there. That's a book right behind me. I don't know if it's the right way around on my screen because I'm totally incompetent when it comes to the technical side of podcasting, all sides of podcasting, and I proved that further by saying during that post-match reaction pod. Now, I wasn't confident. You could see that I wasn't confident that I didn't say Finlay Curtis, who'd come on as a substitute for us in the second half and is scoring a lot of goals for the reserves. I said Fraser Curtis. It's been better if it's Tony Curtis, maybe an Ian Curtis. I said it was Fraser Curtis, not Finlay Curtis. So my apologies to him. My thanks to Andy Hillis, a total legend of the Fat Egg podcast, for correcting me on that one. I like coincidences. This is the point. I might take a whitey, as I say, during this podcast because I'm going to be talking about European football and Rangers in Europe and Rangers against Manchester United in Europe, and it's just, I like coincidences. For example, I know Celtic, as I'm recording this, are playing Young Boys Bern. Young Boys Bern are bottom. They're bottom of the Champions League group. Rangers get put out of Europe at home, not Hampden, by Dynamo Kiev, who are currently bottom of the Europa League group stage. Hearts get put out of, they've missed out by the narrowest of margins from qualification from the Conference League group stage, and their last game is a 2-each draw. They failed to beat Petrocub from Moldova, who play in their stadium that's got a capacity of about 1,000. It's a public park, and Hearts couldn't beat them. They're bottom. They finished bottom of the Conference League group, Petrocub. And Celtic tonight, I don't think they can get eliminated around Celtic, but they're playing Young Boys Bern, who are bottom of that group. Celtic are probably going to pump them, but I think it's something to be noticed, as well as the fact that Celtic drew away this season in Europe with Atalanta. They drew in Bergamo with Atalanta, who are the holders of the Europa League. We drew away with Olympiacos, who are the holders of the Conference League. So Hearts somehow have got to play Real Madrid at the Bernabeu this season and get a good solid 0-0 there, because I like the football coincidences. For example, I think Rangers always do well in Europe in seasons where there's a kind of format change and also a new format change and a new competition in Club Europe, and there's usually a bit of an English component for us. For example, 1960-61, we get to our first ever European final. It was the Cup Winners' Cup, and that itself was a new European competition that season. And of course, it was Wolves that we beat in the semi-final. So like an English component, and that was the first season of being 3 European club competitions, and we got to the final 66-60. I'm kind of struggling with 66-67, which is fine because it was turned into a really bad season for Rangers for lots of various reasons. But it was a new European Cup trophy. The European Cup, that was new trophy. Real Madrid had kept the old one, the old different shaped European Cup when they won it for the 6th time in 1966. Celtic bringing in evil. They won it for the 6th time in 1966 and bringing in the evil. Celtic won it in 67. It was a new trophy. That was the first time they had the big ear trophy that we all know. Now, I know people, they get copies or they get to keep it. I think I've lost count of how many have been given out, but it's still the same shape as it was then. Scotland did win at Wembley, of course. Gallus in 1967 and once before we got to that final, but there wasn't really many format changes or anything like that. So The second hurdle, my wee theory runs out. But in 71-72, that was the first season of the UEFA Cup, and we won the European trophy, won the Cup Winners' Cup. It was the first season of the UEFA Cup. It started in 71-72. There was no English component in our team, or in our run to that final as such, but Chelsea were the holders. And Manchester City had won it the season before that, in 1970. They won the Cup Winners' Cup. And we beat Everton and Spurs in August friendlies. Both Everton and Spurs, we beat the two of them in friendlies that season, 71-72. And then in November, we went down to Stamford Bridge for the Ron Chopper Harris testimonial and beat Chelsea, the holders of the Cup Winners' Cup, and we beat them in their own patch as well. I think they might have been out by that point. But we beat them down there in Ron Chopper Harris's testimonial in 71-72. So there was an English component there. 1992-93, the first official season of the Champions League, a massive format change for European football. First official season of the Champions League, we beat Leeds home and away. There you go. I include that. Didn't get to a final in 92-93, but it's the best we've ever done in the biggest European competition. We're a goal away from the Champions League final, arguably still our greatest ever season in Europe, unbeaten in that. But that was 2007-2008. There was no competition changes, but it was the second last season of the UEFA Cup. The final was in Manchester, and in Manchester United and Chelsea were playing each other in Moscow, as we played a team from St. Petersburg. We played a Russian team as they were playing in Russia in the final in Manchester. So, there's the English component there. 2021-2022 is the first season of the Conference League. The Conference League started in 2021-2022. Away goals were stopped. That was the end of the away goals counting double in the event of a draw. That rule was scrapped in 2021-2022, and we started the season with an Englishman in charge, Steven Gerrard. We had an English captain, James Tavernier, I think was top scorer, James Tavernier, and an English-born scorer of our goal in the final in Seville, Joe Aribo, Nigerian international. 2024-2025, it's the first season of a single group format. In all three of the European club competitions. We've still got that English captain, and tomorrow night, Thursday night, we play the second of the two English clubs we've been drawn against in this Europa League group schedule. We've had Spurs, a wee one each draw there, and now we've got the mighty Manchester United. They're the biggest club in Britain. Manchester United, the best club in Britain. Well, they reached the European Cup semi-finals a year after Hibs reached the European Cup semi-finals. Old Trafford only staged European Cup football, a season after Easter Road and Firhill. That's a story. It had staged European Cup football, so I don't know about that. We reached a European final 7 years before Manchester United reached a European final. Celtic won the European Cup a year before Manchester United won the European Cup. We won the Cup Winners' Cup 19 years before Manchester United won the Cup Winners' Cup. Aberdeen won the Cup Winners' Cup 8 years before Manchester United won the Cup Winners' Cup. In fact, they stole their manager. Man United was so impressed by that they stole the Aberdeen manager, and he was the guy that eventually won them the Cup Winners' Cup. Liverpool and Nottingham Forest have both retained the European Cup/Champions League. Manchester United never have. Liverpool have won the European Cup/Champions League twice as many times as Manchester United. In fact, they managed it 3 times in 5 seasons. As I say, Liverpool 77, 78 and 1981. Manchester United have managed it 3 times in the entire history of European club competition. Liverpool have met Real Madrid in 3 separate European finals, and Manchester United have met Barcelona in 3. It's like the Classico of Spain and England have kind of met each other. The two clubs, that's 3 times is the most that 2 clubs have met in a European final, and it's Manchester United versus Barcelona and Liverpool versus and Manchester United have won a European trophy. They won the 1990 Champions League final in Barcelona, and Liverpool won the 2019 Champions League final. And Dens Park. We couldn't get a second goal. Dens Park. We equalised before half time. We couldn't whole second half. Couldn't pull it back. Dropped 2 points. Dens Park. That's fine. I'm back in the room. Manchester United have, to be fair to them, they've won the Europa League once. We haven't won it, but we've both been in 2 finals of the Europa League / UEFA Cup / Fairs Cup, whatever you want to call that particular competition. Manchester United lost the final on penalties to Villarreal in 2021, and we lost the final on penalties in Spain. The following season, you might remember that. Remember that shootout that Manchester United had with it was David De Gea, the goalkeeper. It was 11-10. 11-10 at Villarreal. Gerrard scored for Villarreal, and big scary Skeletor, Uruguay man who had the my God, what's his name? The rifle. What was he called? He played for Napoli. He played for Man Utd. He played for PSG. The Uruguay striker, him and Suarez, their records for a long time. Uruguay strikers were so symbiotic. It was scary. What was his name? The Skeletor-looking guy that played. Anyway, he equalised for Manchester United. He scored for Manchester United, and they went to penalties in Gdansk, and it was 11-10. All 11 Villarreal players, including the goalkeeper, scored their penalty, and scored their penalties. David De Gea, he was the only guy who missed. So the goalkeepers didn't. The only save, it was a perfect penalty shootout until the second goalkeeper takes his penalty. The goalkeeper of Villarreal only saved one penalty out of 11, and it was the one that the Manchester United goalkeeper took. Jack Butland, he puts away his penalties in penalty shootouts. So to be fair, Manchester, they have won 2 Europa League finals. They have won they have won 3 European club competitions. We now have a 4th, even though there's only 3 in the go at the same time. The Conference League is a 4th European competition historically, but we've got 3 on the go. I count Barcelona as having. I count the UEFA. The Fairs Cup as being the same as the UEFA Cup Europa League. So for me, Barcelona have won 3 European competitions. Ajax have won 3 European competitions. Juventus and Bayern are the same. Chelsea and Manchester United. I mean, this is the English in Europe. England and Europe are quite amazing country when it comes to European club competition. They've both won all 3 of the European club competitions. Although there's 4 now, and Chelsea are top of the Conference League group. They have topped the Conference League group, just as Liverpool are top of the Champions League group. This is England and Europe. Chelsea are on the verge of becoming the first club, to win 4 clearly different, separate European competitions. Even though Fiorentina are the first ones to get to 4 different European competition finals, as far as I'm concerned, and I would quite like to see Fiorentina win it at the 3rd time of asking, having lost the past 2 finals, the whole Conference League. But Chelsea on the verge of winning all 4. But Manchester United, one of the 6 clubs to have won 3 different European club competitions. The main ones, if you want to see the Conference League as the 4th most important European competition. They've been champions of England more times than anybody else so far. Liverpool going to put that right this season. They were the first British club to win the Intercontinental Cup, the Club World Championship, whatever you want to call it, in the old format where it was just the champions of South America against the champions of Europe in Japan. It latterly used to be home and away, then they started playing it in Japan around about 1980. And Roy Keane, the man who missed the final for Manchester United in 1999, having started the comeback, the magnificent comeback against Juventus in the semi-final when Man United finally won the European Cup again, and he was suspended for the final. Roy Keane, he scores the only goal of the game against Palmeiras in Tokyo, and this is Roy Keane who 3 years later has fallen out with the whole Republic of Ireland team and the manager because he doesn't think they've prepared well enough. He thinks they could, and you see how that World Cup went? Win the World Cup in Japan. He'd done it in club terms. Roy Keane scoring the only goal of the game quite appropriately. I know he ended up at Celtic, but I did have a bit of admiration for the guy when he was a player, for his professionalism or over-professionalism. They're also a bit like us in Manchester United in that way, where they've been kind of demoted to the outer circle of the European monopoly machine known as the Champions League, which we both helped create. We qualified for it before Manchester. We qualified for the Champions League proper before Manchester United, at the expense of Leeds, who they had, been pipped to the title by the previous season. So Sir Alec probably quite enjoyed that, but I loved it. It took Man U 6 years to go any further than us in the Champions League. We were the only team to have got that close to the final. Eventually, they got to the final and they won it in 1999. But in 1993, we were a goal away from the final, and Man U, was it Galatasaray, put them out and stuff like that. It was good laughs watching Man U struggling to achieve things that Rangers had achieved in Europe. But the Champions League, as I say, it really does turn its back on you when you don't have the buy-in, when you don't have the buy-in money anymore. Man U, the Glazers, all that stuff that went on eventually. Under the tutelage of our current CEO, Manchester United have really fallen out of things when it comes to the Champions League. They're in it last season, didn't do too well, but Man U have been in the Champions League group stages 25 times. We've been in it 11, and I'm quite chuffed with Rangers being in the Champions League group stages 11 times. Man U been in it 25 times. So a bit of a joke these days as far as the rest of England's concerned, but we need to rein that in. As Rangers supporters going down there tomorrow, don't sing "Who the fuck are Man United." Don't sing that. They just laugh at you. They laugh. They want you to sing "Who the fuck are Man United." I remember it was at 2003 when they first came to Ibrox in the Champions League. I went for a drink. Was at Crystal Palace? Just on Jamaica Street. A couple of pre-match drinks, and of course nobody's wearing colours, and somebody, a Rangers supporter, did belt it. Or maybe it was a Glasgow-based Man U fan, but it felt as if it was a Blue Nose giving it, "Who the fuck am Man United?" I heard the Union Bells singing at the end of the game with Fraserburgh on Sunday, and the whole pub just erupted. It was Mancunians, or London. It's English accents, they all sound the same to me. "Who the fuck am Man United?" It's a song they've claimed, and I feel there's various songs going on just now about Rangers from rival supporters, which we should claim in a similar fashion. But I'm not just sucking up the arse of Manchester United fans. I'm not particularly impressed by any other fans in Britain. And I would say, if to kind of guard against the notion that I'm telling you to follow, don't sing that song, because it'll just lead you into a trap by the really clever Manchester United fans who've taken that song on for themselves. Listen to them singing. I think they heard it when they were coming out onto the park the other day. I saw the highlights of them losing at home to Brighton, but obviously I was watching to see the dedications to Dennis Law. But you heard their version of hello, we are United, but it is laughable. It's the same in Spurs fans. It's just not a song it's not a song that we want to be singing. It's sectarian. It's horrible. But you can see, I think, and hear when you hear Manchester United fans or Spurs fans singing, hello, we're up to an easy Arsenal blood surrender. It's just, what is that? It's a song that is suited to the Scottish, particularly a Western Scottish accent. Hello, and we should change the lyrics. It's too late now. People will just think it's a way of slipping it in casually. But if you just change the lyrics, we're up to an easy Air Blood, but sung by the Kelly Boys, and I think Dundee sing it about United or the Arabs, whatever it is, the Arab Blood. That's never done. But since when has anybody saying there should be Arab blood caused any problems? None at all. We should. We're up to my knees in toast and cheese. Would be really good, just to talk about the cholesterol problems in the west of Scotland, the heart attack rate, something relevant to myself. But no, it did show that song, one of the reasons it was taken on by the Rangers supporters wasn't because of the sectarian hatred. It's because it just sounds great in a Scottish accent. But we need to bin it, no doubt about that. It's a hateful song. But that's the English in Europe. It is. Today, always their records in European club competition is absolutely fantastic. Now, Real Madrid alone have won the European Cup, I think, as many times as all of England put together. But it's Real Madrid and Barcelona have Spain are top of the Champions League / European Cup winners list. But it's two clubs. That's the only two clubs that have won it from Spain. Whereas England, you've got Forest, Villa, Liverpool, Man U, Man City, Chelsea. It's quite incredible. And you look Fulham in the Europa League final, Middlesbrough losing the first ever Europa League final 2010. Fulham lost that after extra time. In Hamburg to Atletico Madrid. Diego Forlan, who scored against us for Manchester United in the Champions League group stages, and also against us for Villarreal in the Champions League knockout stages. You had Middlesbrough getting to the 2006 UEFA Cup final, losing that to Saviour. You had Ipswich won the UEFA Cup in 1982. Birmingham City lost two successive Fairs Cup finals, the second and third Fairs Cup final. London 11 select side got to the first Fairs Cup final. Leeds United lost the European Cup final. Leeds United have played in the final of all three, the traditional three European club competitions, only winning the Fairs Cup but losing the Cup Winners' Cup final, losing the European Cup final. Spurs have lost the Champions League final, and they've won the Cup Winners' Cup, and they've won and lost the UEFA Cup final. West Ham have won and lost the Cup Winners' Cup final. Of course, they won the Conference League. It's Arsenal. Arsenal losing heavily to Chelsea in the 2019 Europa League final in Baku. Baku. We thought that was the best we were going to do in Europe, and we ended up getting the final in Seville. But the English have just got a formidable record, and it's such a variety of clubs that have got to the final. Say Nottingham Forest winning 2 European Cups. What else we got? Birmingham City, Aston Villa. Wolves getting to 71-72 UEFA Cup final against Spurs. Mentioned Man City. I'll have missed somebody out, no doubt about it. But it's a phenomenal thing we're taking on tomorrow. We're not taking on the whole of England, obviously, but it's quite an arena historically that we're entering again tomorrow, going down to England to play in Europe. It's quite a daunting prospect. Last season, under Ten Hag, Manchester United finished 8th in the league. 31 points behind Manchester City, who haven't already, been the first one to do a domestic treble, then become the first one to win 4 successive league titles. So that's quite hurtful for Manchester United. It's not just Liverpool are going to come back and equal the 20 league titles probably this season if they win the league. So it's the 2 most kind of hated rivals that Man Utd up against. Maybe they hate Arsenal a bit more, but they were 8 points away from a Champions League berth under Ten Hag at the end of last season. Maybe out of the Europa League spots, should have gone to Newcastle if Man City had won the FA Cup final, but it didn't. Manchester United got straight into the Europa League group stages this season by dint of winning the the first for them, but the second consecutive Manchester Derby FA Cup final. They won that, and that put them straight in here. Ruben Amorim also, he played for Benfica in the 2014 Europa League final, lost on penalties. So he's experienced what we've experienced. They lost to Sevilla in Juventus's ground, the Stadium Juventus in Turin there, lost on penalties. He played the whole of that game. He was a manager of Sporting Club de Portugal. I think won the Portuguese league twice with them, winning a League Cup as well, maybe a Portuguese Cup. But he's definitely doing the business over there. Cuffed Man City in the Champions League this season, but takes the Manchester United job. He joined them in, I think, the 11th of November. Erik ten Hag sacked on the 28th of October, and Ruud van Nistelrooy had taken over and taken interim charge of Manchester United and beat Leicester a couple of times before taking over at Leicester, who are now going to play Manchester United in the FA Cup. If it wasn't for Leicester, Manchester United wouldn't have a season domestically. Anyway, this season, they drew their first 3 games, and they haven't lost a game. They're only a point above us in the Europa League group. They're 7th, we're 8th in the last of the automatic qualification for the last 16 berths. They're 7th, a point in front of us, but I think we've actually got a better goal difference. They drew their first 3 games, all under Ten Hag, in this competition. They've played in this group stage under 3 different managers. They drew at home with 20. Sam Lammers, the one and only Sam Lammers, scoring for 20 at Old Trafford. They drew with Porto away from home in Dragao, having been 2-0 up after like quarter of an hour or 20 minutes, and then it was 2 each at half time when they went 3-2 down. It was big Harry Maguire, big slap head, big shovel heads. Harry Maguire equalised for 10-man Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes gets sent off in injury time. And Dragao make it 3 each. Harry Maguire, you can slag that guy. I think he had the captaincy taken off him, the England international, much derided player. But I sat in a bar in Stockholm watching Sweden losing a World Cup quarter-final to Harry Maguire's forehead back in 2018. He's got a cracking record, and our record at set pieces. Manchester United also bad at set pieces this season, bad at defending them. We are probably worse at defending them, and he'll be a big fear for us if he's playing tomorrow night. He was out doing the presser today with Ruben Amorim. They drew with Fenerbahce, I think, in Turkey in Istanbul, so that's a cracking result. They beat. Now, who did they beat? I think it was then when Van Nistelrooy took over. They played PAOK. Of Salonika at home. In the Greek sides from the tomb, they played them at Old Trafford, and it was Amad Diallo. Amad Diallo got both the goals that night. Amad Diallo, who's also scored from the League Cup, I think it was against Spurs when Spurs put in the League Cup quarterfinals. He has scored for them. He's a top scorer in the league, Amad Diallo, and he's got 6 goals in the league. So it shows the kind of state Man U are in this season. But that's Amad Diallo, who of course played for us Scored in his debut against Ross County in a terrible 3 straw for us there. He ended up at Sunderland and has just looked, he's been world class in some of the highlights I've seen of him at Manchester United. I wish we'd kept him. We probably wouldn't have been able to anyway, but he's been fantastic for them. He scored both goals, cracking goals, 2 lovely goals. You should watch the goals. In fact, don't, it'll just scare you. The goals he scored against PAOK. The first one, the header across the goal, I'm not sure if he actually meant it, maybe try to knock it back, but he does amazingly. And it goes in. He's a wee guy, but he's capable of scoring these goals in the air as well. That was under Van Nistelrooy. And then when Amorim took over, they beat Bodo Glimt 3-2. Hell of a game. They're a goal up after a minute, 2-1 down after 20 odd minutes, 2 each at half time, and they win the game 3-2. They then beat Victoria Pilsen, and that might have been the last game. They beat Victoria Pilsen in the Czech Republic after a nightmare from Andre Onana, the goalkeeper. He a bad pass out straight to basically a Victoria Pilsen player. Then they walked the ball into the net, but Man Utd turned it around. They won that game 2-1. Is that all the games? That'd be 6 games, so this is their 7th game. It's us. They're unbeaten, as I say, but it's not as if it's been without their traumas. Rasmus Højlund, the Danish international, cracking striker. He is their top scorer. I think he scored 5 goals in this group stage. They're straight into the group stage, so that's the only European football they've played this season. And some of his goals are absolutely sumptuous as well. He's a frightening prospect. They called it the 3rd largest crowd ever for a Europa League match, Manchester United. It was 75,000 plus back in 2015-16. They played Liverpool, last 16, last 32, something like that. Liverpool beat them over the 2 legs and went on to lose the final. And Manchester United won the thing the following season under Jose Mourinho. They beat Ajax 2-0 in Stockholm, the Friends Arena in Stockholm. They beat Ajax with Paul Pogba and Mkhitaryan. They beat Ajax 2-0 in the final of the Europa League the following season. So they've won it once and they've lost the final once, Manchester United. They've won the Cup Winners' Cup in 1991, beating Barcelona in Rotterdam and De Kuip. They won the European Cup, of course, in 1968, beating Benfica 4-1 after extra time. They won it again in 1999, beating Bayern Munich 2-1 with 2 injury time goals in the Nou Camp. They won it again in 2008, beating Chelsea on penalties in Moscow. They lost the final in 2009 to Barcelona in Rome. They lost the final in 2011 to Barcelona at Wembley, 3-1. Phenomenal performance by Barcelona. So they know about European football, do Manchester United. Our record versus them, versus English clubs in Europe, I think this is the 10th time we've met an English club in Europe, albeit it's single legs, if you like, this time, the 9th time being Spurs. That 1 each draw at Ibrox in December. This is the 10th time this one-off game at Old Trafford on the new format, but we've only won once in England, and I think it was when we beat Leeds 2-1. I think it's the only time we've won in England. Leeds being the only side we have eliminated. No, Leeds and Wolves, sorry. Wolves in the 61 Cup Winners' Cup semi-final, and then Leeds in the 91-92 Champions League qualifier, if you like. It was like the playoff round, effectively. That's the only 2 times we've beaten English clubs. We've lost to Newcastle in the semi-final of the Fairs Cup. Man U, we'll deal with that. Liverpool, of course, scalped us home and away, especially at home in the Champions League group stages in 2022, 2023. Leeds have also beaten us in the Fairs Cup in the quarter-final in the 60s. Spurs scalped us in the Cup Winners' Cup. I'll be missing somebody out, but it's not a great record that we have against English sides in Europe. This is us looking to score our first goal in Manchester, as I say, because we've played Manchester United. This is our 3rd trip to Old Trafford. It's the 3rd time I've met Manchester United in European competition, but of course we played the 2008 UEFA Cup final there. Pretty much the most vital day of my life as a Rangers supporter, and we didn't score in that one either. We played Manchester United in the 2003-2004 Champions League. Before they beat us 3-0 at Old Trafford, Van Nistelrooy with 2, Diego Forlan with 1, Van Nistelrooy, who also scored against us for PSV Eindhoven, although we won that game 4-1 in the Champions League group stages. Thank God we didn't come up against him when he played for Real Madrid in the Champions League. Phil Neville scoring the only goal of the game, 2003. Amazing atmosphere at Ibrox, but Phil Neville scores within 5 minutes. Only goal of the game, not as Frankie of Jersnet will tell you, and maybe I'll leave it to Frankie. Maybe somebody wanted kept private, but Frankie of Jersnet will tell you that is not the only time Phil Neville has scored the only goal of the game at Ibrox, but I'll leave that one to see if Frankie wants to reveal that on Jersnet. we drew. They beat us 1-0 that night, and then we played them again in the 2010-2011 Champions League. Drew 0-0 at Old Trafford. That was a major result under Walter's second coming, and we were doing reasonably well, not attacking them too much. In the game at Ibrox, it's 3 minutes to go. It's 0-0 with 3 minutes to go. And in goes Fabio Da Silva into the Rangers box. And Stephen Naismith raised a boot, and I was up the other end of the Govan. I'm up the Copeland Road side of the Govan, and I could see Nazy doing what Nazy does. That what? Never, no way. There's just no way. That's a penalty. I never touched the guy. So convincing, Stephen Naismith. I think it was that night I saw it on the television, saw the close-up of Fabio Da Silva's face. The guy's semi-concussed. He's got stud marks, like 8 studs down his cheek. You can actually see, SN, the imprint just above his jaw where it says Stephen Naismith's boots. It's such a penalty. It was unbelievable. Wayne Rooney scores that. So that was us. Man United definitely get the better of us in Europe in the two previous occasions. They didn't get the better of us, I don't think, in the Alec. Was it Alec Forsyth testimonial? This is one I heard about. I think we invaded the pitch. Did we actually take the Stretford end, the Rangers support? This was in the 70s when English clubs started realising, just play Celtic in friendlies. I just invite Celtic down. They've got the same size of support. We'll make the same money. Rangers just aren't worth it. You have to rebuild a stadium after you play them. I think the legend has it we went on, Man United had a reputation as being, hard cases or, a bit rowdy supporters down there, and we went down there and showed them what rowdy was all about. But I don't know if we won that testimonial. I don't know if it was Alec Forsyth's actual testimonial, but it was a friendly in the 70s. I was there, not when we played Man U, but the 4-team tournament in the mid-90s. I was there on the Friday night where we lost to Sampdoria, having been 2-0 up at half-time, lost 4-2, and then after that I sat and watched Newcastle beating Manchester United on penalties. The next day, I wasn't at the Saturday edition, with the final and the third, fourth place playoff, but Newcastle played Sampdoria. I don't know what happened, but Rangers, the hors d'oeuvre for that was Rangers beating Man U 1-0. I think it was a David May own goal, and Eric Cantona gets sent off, and Sir Alec, who was really complimentary about the atmosphere at Ibrox and Rangers' efforts the 2 times they won at Ibrox in the Champions League, was like, this place is a shithole, I hate these fans. He always just takes defeat really well, Sir Alec. A total gentleman. I missed that one, and of course this season, the start of this season, they beat us 2-0 at Murrayfield. The reserves beat us 2-0 at Murrayfield. A lot of fear about Hefty, the way he was taken to pieces by Amad Diallo in that game. But I saw Hefty a week later playing against Union Berlin, and he had a few really dodgy moments as well. Watched that one on the telly, another friendly we played this pre-season, but he's a completely different player now. He's come on leaps and bounds, but he'll have to. We might have a plan for tomorrow when it comes to dealing with Diallo, if indeed Diallo plays, because Manchester United have got Fulham. They've got Fulham Craven Cottage on Sunday evening. They are, I think, 7 points behind Fulham. Fulham are 10th. They're exactly halfway in the 20-team English Premiership. Manchester United are 13th. And so they're 7 points behind Fulham, and they're 26 points that they're on just now. Manchester United is half, basically, of Liverpool's total. Liverpool on 50 points at the top of the league as they go to make it title number 20. And finally, just, obviously not write it off completely, but put that 20 years under Sir Alex Ferguson to bed with a catching up again with Manchester United's title. Would go level with Man U on 20 English titles each. Man U this season have been, it's quite unbelievable. They've lost 3-0, I won't say 3 different managers. They've lost 3-0 at home to Liverpool and Bournemouth and Spurs in the league. This is 2-0 at home to Newcastle. They lost 3-1 at home to Brighton, and Sunday they lost 3-2 at home to Nottingham Forest. They lost 2-0 at Arsenal. They lost 2-1 at West Ham. This is all in the league. I say 13 points. They're 13th in the table, only on 26 points, and Liverpool about to catch them. And this has led to Ruben Amorim on Sunday after the game against Brighton, where they lost 3-1 at home, saying this was the worst Manchester United team ever. Probably the worst Manchester United team ever. Bruno Fernandes, I saw his post-match interview. My heart sank when I saw that Man U had lost 3-1 at home on Sunday, because I think it's the worst possible thing could happen to us. It would mean that they're ready to go for it, but they're ready to take it out on Sunday. We might just walk into this trap tomorrow. We might be the perfect opposition for them. But then I suppose they've been saying that about everybody they've been playing this season, but the quality in the English Premier League is so much better than what we have in Scotland. So if they find a hole in our setup, and there could be a few there, they will really go to town. I saw his press conference today, Ruben Amorim, the current Man U manager, and he's talking about how he's lost 7 out of his first 10 games in charge. That's what he meant, really. He was talking about himself. He's trying to dial back on that comment, but he's sitting with Harry Maguire, the same as we saw our manager sitting with James Tavernier today, or tonight, in our pre-match presser. And the presser just saying, how's it feel? Saying to Harry Maguire, how's it feel when your manager says you're one of the worst Manchester United teams ever? And he's got to kind of talk his way around that. And I worry for Ruben Amorim. He's a hell of a nice guy, really lovely guy, very self-effacing. He's trying to be honest. He's just trying to say what he thinks. And even today, saying, I made a mistake. I'm still quite a young manager. I shouldn't have said that. I didn't mean it exactly the way it came out. It was something I'd said to the players before I said it to the media, so that's okay somehow. But they're eating him alive. The press are absolutely eating him alive. And that's a kind of hope. What we've got the chance, what we have the prospect of doing here, just makes me go a bit white, take a whitey, get a bit flaky. I was really jealous of Celtic beating Liverpool in the UEFA Cup. Their run to Seville in 2003. They were talking 22 years ago here, and same thing. The Manchester United, the Liverpool team then is the equivalent of the Manchester United team now. So we could bitch and moan about how it's the worst Liverpool team ever, or that they played the worst. And it isn't, because Man United and Liverpool have both played lower league football. But, and this is before, obviously this is 2003, so this is like a decade before Rangers, nearly went to the cleaners, and we saw just exactly how the toxicity levels in Scottish football, and I was always fighting against that thing of complete hatred for your enemies in football. It's just a sport. We're united by a love of the game and this kind of thing. But I wanted Celtic to get pasted in Europe. I still couldn't stand Celtic. It's still, I knew I was trying to limit it. Just trying to say it as a kind of, it's like when you go to the cinema and you watch a horror movie. You don't go back home and then spend all night, lying in your bed with your eyes open and putting the light on, hoping there isn't. You don't do that. You don't believe in the aliens. You really enjoy it during the film. The aliens are invading or whatever like that. When you leave the cinema, you don't think the aliens are coming to get you and stuff like that. Putting stuff in your pants so they can't probe you. You don't date that kind of stuff. You just you leave it. You try and leave it at the football. That was always my attitude. It's not that bad. And then of course I saw the way everybody just wanted us dead and out the way, and I thought, no, fuck the lot of yous. But before that, in 2003, 2002, 2003, and Rangers are trying. We won the treble that season. I didn't want Celtic to get into a European final. I'm really guarded about how I want Rangers to have the best European record in Scotland. But they went down to Anfield and they beat them 2-0. Celtic. They did score into the Kop. Alan Thompson scored a penalty into the Kop end. And I watched that game. This is the days when I could actually watch Celtic on television. And it was John Hartson in the second half rattles this thing. Now I wanted Liverpool to beat them. And I think there's a slight. I've had Celtic supporting friends say they don't mind too much when Rangers are playing English clubs, because they want to beat the English. But and obviously a bit of that as well about me. But I remember when they beat Blackburn, for example, that same season. Celtic, I was gutted. Souness was the Blackburn manager, obviously. I always wanted Celtic to get beat, but maybe there was a wee bit underlying the kind of thing. I realised, because I knew Liverpool exactly how great they were in European terms, and I don't know, an innate pride in the Scottish game, an innate respect for the Scottish game, an affection for it that I don't have anymore. I hope to build up again, but it was a lot of that really was killed off in 2012. But Hartson hit that ball so hard and into the top corner so quickly in the Anfield Road end. My leg went. I'll tell you that right here. My leg. I mean, I wasn't cheering. I was actually in my head. I was gutted. It felt as if but my leg went. Oh, there must have been a part of me that was thinking, by some result, if Celtic beat Liverpool at Anfield, by some result, if Celtic put out Liverpool for European competition, it's a good one for Scotland. I'm like that, Celtic don't give a shit about Rangers. Celtic want Rangers to die and go out of existence, and I knew that at the time, and I've pretty much felt that, I pretty much generally like that about Celtic at the time as well. It's got a bit worse with the reaction we got to what their club was trying to do to us in 2008 when we were trying to get to a European final. But I can't lie. when he hit that ball at the top, got my left leg. I just remember it was just a wee jerk, just a wee kind of like a wee spasm, as if I was going to get up and cheer. No, I mean, I immediately had that leg amputated. It's gone now. But it was because I thought it's gone green, it's gangrene, get rid of it. But I kind of, I was really, I was. It was a result I had to respect. I remember watching them in the final and that, and just being delighted, cheering when Porto scored and stuff like that. They get beat, but I wasn't running about boasting about it because Celtic reached the European final and we hadn't. It's get things in perspective. But I remember that, and I want that for Rangers, and I think this would be our equivalent. If we get in there and we beat, because we both Rangers and Celtic have both beaten Leeds home and away in the European Cup, a seminal stage of the European Cup, the Champions League. I want this for us. I think this would be unbelievable, and I find it really weird. There's this strange thing going on where a win for us at Old Trafford somehow compounds the frustration of a lot of Rangers fans about Philippe Clement. A thing that I heard, which I did not believe, and I certainly in no way agree with, and I thought was going far too far. I heard it from a few different people, podcasts and things, after, I don't know, the draws at Dens and Easter Road, that if he'll probably go to Old Trafford and win just to annoy us. If he goes down there and wins, it doesn't change anything. It changes. It might not change your attitude towards this season, but this is a result that would go beyond this season. I would be quite happy if somebody said to me just now, Rangers will finish third this season if you beat Manchester United tomorrow night. I'd take that. I'd take third. I absolutely take third in the SPFL Premiership. Who the hell remembers that? This would be a result that would resound, echo in eternity, as they say in the old the films about Romans and stuff. So I would just love it. I think it would. It would minimise. It would. It's difficult to really sum up what I'm trying to say here. I'm starting to lose it. I'm getting so excited just thinking about beating Manchester United at Old Trafford. But this idea, it's almost like Boyd versus Hemdani, that whole thing we had in 2000. Chris Boyd should definitely be playing. He scores goals. He plainly can't do it in Europe, and he's holding us back. We need more work outside the box in Europe, so we need to sacrifice. No. Hemdani, what's the point of having him? We got to a European final. We got to a European final, and we nearly won the league, and we won both the cups domestically that season. But it was all the way through the season I had to hear this stuff, and it's like I'm having to hear this as well about how people have actually almost, Rangers supporters have almost kind of got their argument in first. They're scared that we could beat Manchester United at Old Trafford because it will disprove their theories about how poor Clement is and how he's got to go. I don't give a shit about my own theories. Obviously, I'm embarrassed enough to share them with you. I'm sorry, I'm not embarrassed. I keep sharing them with you. I just want us to be, if the facts change, my opinion will change. But I think there's no doubting that Philippe Clement is, it's a fact that he hasn't lost away from home in Europe as Rangers manager. Sparta Prague, a 0-0 in Sparta Prague. We beat Real Betis, our first ever win against Spanish opposition on Spanish soil, beating them 3-2. Benfica, we drew 2 each with Benfica, and that's somewhere in Barcelona. We're struggling to win last night. Dynamo Kiev, it was Poland, of course, but we drew with them in the away game. Malmo, we beat them, the champions of Sweden. Stuff like that makes a massive difference to me. We can now say we hadn't beaten Swedish opposition in European competition. To beat Malmo in Malmo, that can't be taken away from me. That has happened now. We no longer have an unwinning record against Swedish opposition, and beating the champions and champions-elect of Sweden on their own patch so comprehensively is phenomenal for me. Olympiacos going over to any Greek side at any time, a nightmare challenge. The atmosphere's just so hostile, it's unbelievable. The only Greek side to ever have won a European trophy, while they are holders of that European trophy, whether at the peak of their powers, to go there and draw with them and have chances to win that game, a phenomenal draw. Destroyed Nice, absolutely destroyed them. They underestimated us. They feel a weakened side, but they started trying to change that. Didn't matter. It was too late. We destroyed them over there. We're on the cusp of doing something I think that would change the actual way we regard our own club, just slightly. We know how massive Rangers are. We know how phenomenally well Rangers have done in Europe in the past. But this is something that you can't give a shit about how we're going against Dundee at Dens Park or Hibs at Easter Road. We'll be playing Dundee at Dens Park and Hibs at Easter Road forever. This is something we have to do. The other thing with if we get a chance to do it, just do it. And that's why I don't like Bruno Fernandes coming out and calling out the captain of Manchester United, the Portuguese legend Bruno Fernandes coming out and calling out their form at home. They're having the same problem with their domestic home form as we're having with our domestic away form. They're also having their problems with their boardroom as well. Or, Jim Ratcliffe kind of taking over and starting to make his mark there. Chopping and changing the manager. Well, we did it last season. We've held on to Clement for more than a year now, but it's still not exactly settled management situation. We've got plenty to sort out with our boardroom, with our chairman, interim chairman, etc. Our chairman situation is pretty much mirrored the Manchester United manager situation this season. So there's a lot of parallels between the two clubs. They're both pretty bad with set pieces, apparently. So I mean, they're bad, apparently. I know we're bad with set pieces. We could finish their manager off. We could finish Amorim off tomorrow night, or we could be the perfect team for them to start. Mate, I'll get back into some stats, folks. I'm getting carried away with myself. The Manchester, their players, I'll miss somebody out because I've got a massive roster of massive names. For example, Manchester United are today being told that they should, if Napoli offer 55 million, they'll maybe take it for Garnacho, for Alejandro Garnacho of Argentina, Marcus Rashford, England striker Marcus Rashford, phenomenal player, all round great bloke as well. He's in Lisbon for talks with Barcelona last night, but was hearing today on Sky Sports News that he's back in training and is available, but probably won't play. I hope he doesn't bloody play Marcus Rashford because he's phenomenal. So I'm hoping he's wanting a move. He was supposed to be going to Milan at one point, and now it's looking like he wants to go to Barcelona. But he's in talks with them. Antony of Brazil, he's on his way to Real Betis. He's the players they're losing. They're after a left back from Lecce, who I think is going to end up at Napoli. But I think I've got a bid of 29 million in for him. This is the kind of money they're dealing in just now. They've got De Ligt from 40 odd caps for the Netherlands. He's played for Ajax, Juventus, Bayern Munich. You got him at centre half. Lisandro Martinez of Argentina, for Christ's sake, an absolute legend. Christian Eriksen, phenomenal. Should be a Rangers player. We thought he died. Turned out he was absolutely fine. He made his way back slowly. He scored for them this season. I think he scored for them against 20 and then gave the ball away to Sam Lammers. So he's maybe summing up Manchester United's season just now. The Danish legend that is Christian Eriksen, Bruno Fernandes, a captain. Don't say any more about him. He's a phenomenal, creative player. Harry Maguire, Lisandro Martinez, Christian Eriksen. Talked about Victor Lindelof. 70 caps for Sweden. They get Casemiro. Casemiro's in the Man United squad as well. He's like won 228 Champions League winners' medals. Brazilian international, scored in the 2017 final for Real Madrid against Juventus and Cardiff. Rasmus Højlund, he's frightening, as I say. He's top scorer in Europe this season. The Danish international striker as well. They've got Menu, they've got Ugarte of Uruguay, Menu of England. I think they're playing a kind of 3-4-2. Diego Dallo. They play a kind of 3-4-2-1 formation, and it would be three centre halves, and then the four you've got Harry Maguire in the middle, and you get like Euro and De Ligt perhaps on each side of him, the French guy Euro, and then you've got the four. You'll have two wing backs there, Dallo and Mazraoui, the Moroccan international Mazraoui, who's got a fantastic CV. Diego Dallo of Portugal, there are two wing backs there, and you could have like Fernandes and Ugarte sitting in there, and then or Ugarte and Menu sitting in there. The two they have behind the main striker would be, for example, Diallo, and have been Diallo and Bruno Fernandes, and you've got Rasmus Højlund maybe as the one. There's also Zirkzee, the young Dutch fella. He could play there, but it's absolutely terrifying, the thought of like Fernandes and Diallo sitting in behind Rasmus Højlund. So I don't know why Manchester United are doing so badly this season. I really don't. They've got a real confidence problem. We have to go and try and exploit that. For us, there is no Diamandi, which I think is, I mean, I don't know why, it's an absolute scandal that he's been suspended. He's only been booked versus Spurs, Nice, Malmo and Dinamo Kiev in Europe this season. But that sums up why we're going to miss him, because he just brings so much. He brings so much dynamism, particularly away from home. It's like, wasn't he too impressive against Fraserburgh? Against all these teams away from home in Europe, he's been phenomenal. The perfect foil for Raskin, and at times we had the three of them, Raskin, Diamandi and Connor Barron, who's obviously, I would imagine, is going to come in to replace him tomorrow night. Playing, like, I think against Nice they were great, but against Olympiacos they were absolutely sensational. They just went toe to toe with them in a really dynamic, aggressive, tactically astute, just exciting to watch way. So we're really going to miss Diamandi. I think he could be the reason we don't win tomorrow. If we're going to win, if we're going to, it'd still be a massive result for Rangers to get anything out of this. A draw, even to avoid a doing, is a massive result for Rangers in this game. But a Diamandi would be going to be a massive miss tomorrow. We'll get no John Souttar. And that is a massive miss. You think of like Harry Maguire, needs that physicality to combat that at set pieces. But then you think about the goal we lost against Olympiacos and Piraeus. He has his moments, John Souttar. So we'll try and just remember the few mistakes John Souttar's made for us to try and not miss him too much tomorrow night. Jack Butland. There's talk that he seems to be, the manager was saying, what did the manager say today about Jack Butland? I wrote this down here, let me see. Jack Butland, Jack is back training and he feels fit. And then he went on to say how he can rely on both him and Liam Kelly. He's got two good goalkeepers there, as well as Mason Munzer. He mentioned him as well. He's trying not to upset anybody, but Jack is back. He's fit. He's training. I don't know if that's just a wee bit of mind games there, and it's going to be Liam Kelly tomorrow. But Jack Butland, a guy who has been at Manchester United, England goalkeeper, Great Britain goalkeeper. He's got a massive ego, Jack Butland, and that's absolutely fine. And he backs it up in European. He's been great for us in Europe as well, and I think he would be dying to play in this game tomorrow. He's certainly, I mean, Andre Onana, who's the Manchester United goalkeeper, Cameroon international. Maybe they'll have the reserve goalie in there or whatever, but he, played for Inter when they lost the 2023 Champions League final to Manchester City in Istanbul. He had that Rick against Victoria Pilsen, and then he had a Rick on Sunday. He just basically hands the ball to Brighton. So he's probably going to be an absolute cracker of a game against us if he plays Andre Onana. But Jack Butland is certainly no less reliable, even though he's had a few moments domestically this season. But I would love to see Jack Butland back. Just like useful inside information, just like our CEO, Patrick Stewart, who presided over Manchester United going from title after title to no titles and struggling to qualify for the Champions League. We just loan him back to Manchester United for this one night. Patrick Stewart, if you could just keep that kind of pattern going there, just add one more boot to the boys for Old Trafford in the shape of a Rangers win tomorrow. Raskin is going to be is playing, obviously. Tomorrow he's going to come back in. He's the main man. Hadji's ineligible. Danilo is ineligible. I think Clinton and Ciala must be ineligible as well. I don't think he's in the European squad. Cortez remains knacked and out of things. Obviously Kassan, Weirdo and Sterling, we would have loved to have either of them, the kind of physicality and mobility that they brought. It just makes me sad when I think about what they could offer us, but they just, that Rangers injury thing striking them down again. The manager was saying he's got around 8 players missing through not being in the European squad list, which he could get a bit of a hard time about, but we're on the verge of qualifying, so it doesn't really matter. But he says no one that's here needs to prove anything to him. The team that he's got, he's trying to build up the confidence of the team that he's going to be playing with tomorrow. He's going to be fielding. Even though he says he never gives his starting 11 before the game. He was not giving away his tactics. I'm not someone who believes in parking a bus though, and then just hoping to take one chance on this. So I think we're going to go for it again. We're going to try and defend by attacking. It's a situation, this is a little scary thing where you get scarily confident. It's how Rangers have been playing this season. We're bad domestically away from home. The whole thing about not being able to break down teams with low blocks overstated. We put 6 past Ross County, we put 6 past Kilmarnock at home. But there's no two ways about it. This team prefers, at this stage of the development perhaps, and you never know, if the switch might start tomorrow night, we get cuffed off Manchester United 5-0. And then we just start, we go and pump Dundee United at Tannadice, and we start becoming the team that so many Rangers fans seem to want us to be, where we win away from home domestically and we don't really care what we do in Europe. I'll never be that Rangers supporter. I always want us to do well in Europe, and I would prioritise that, and I hope we can keep this going. This one game, Manchester United will need to come at us. Maybe their manager was playing mind games on us today, but he was saying how they need to try and get the first goal. He kept talking about how nervous they are as a team, and was getting slagged for that, getting into more trouble with the media for that. But he said they're a nervous team. Right now, Manchester United, that's just something that you can't deny. They don't like playing at Old Trafford. It's giving them the fear, so they need to try and get an early goal. So they're going to come at us. That should suit Rangers, who their best performances have come with way less than 50% possession this season. Even at Ibrox against Celtic, we don't like having the ball. We like to break, take it, and get it in the back of the net, then go back, sit in and defend, and hassle teams when they have the ball. I'm going to say only Real Madrid, Barcelona, I would say, are bigger than Manchester United in the whole of Europe. I mean, Milan, Bayern, Juventus, Liverpool far more successful, as I say, especially in European terms. Milan also, Bayern also, but these are all teams of a comparable level. But maybe it's because I'm in Britain, just the amount I hear about them. But I think you go all over the world, Manchester United just have that kind of cachet. I don't agree with it particularly. I'm not in any way. I don't feel any great affection for Manchester United. They're talking about expanding Old Trafford, and that just seems to sum it up for me. It's got this kind of 74,000 or some capacity just now, but it's still... I've only been twice to Old Trafford, and never when it was this size. I went there when they still had a tiny bit of terracing left. I think, did they? In the 90s, like kind of early to mid-90s, we're playing Wimbledon, and I got a ticket for the Wimbledon section. That's quite an experience, having been at Ibrox and slagging the fans of all to actually be there. Wimbledon equalised. It was a Vinnie Jones, John Fashanu Wimbledon team, and they equalised quite late on in the game. So I'm in the Wimbledon section of practically sitting director's box of about 500 Wimbledon fans who all stood up there cheering, so I had to stand up with them. And then Man U went straight back up the park and went 2-1 up. It was Andrew Kanchelskis, I think. And they won 3-1. And to be having like 50,000 people, or 40,000 as it was, in your face, giving, get it round you and all that. You're like, but I'm just supporting a wee team. I thought, this is what it's like for the folk at slag at Ibrox, or the opposing supporters at slag at Ibrox. And I was there for the Euro 96 quarter-final between Croatia and Germany, which Germany won 2-1. I was in the Stretford end, sitting in the Stretford end. I never did any great. For example, I never really rushed to try and stand in the Stretford end before it gets seated. At the time, all the stadiums were getting seated in England, and Old Trafford just seems like a kind of functional stadium with no real kind of, architectural delights about it at all. There's nothing very homely about it, but it's always kind of intense and very impressive. But it's nothing very kind of historic feeling about it. And I think I wouldn't care less if they moved stadium, they went somewhere else. It's all about getting people in through the door, getting a massive number of people through the door. That's fine, just do that. But I don't feel it's something like Rangers. See, we were getting crowds of 118,000 back in the 1930s when Manchester United were getting a record crowd of almost half that. But it's a massive, massive game. There's just no getting away from it. And I think it'd be a massive, massive result that would slightly change our life as Rangers supporters if we were to go down there and win. I'm going to go for... I would hope it'd be Jack Butland in goals. I prefer him. If not, it's going to be Liam Kelly. Tav, he was doing the presser today. He's back. He'll be getting it right back. I'm assuming it's going to be Balogun and Proper at centre half. Hefty at left back. I would imagine Hefty at left, but you could have Yilmaz going at left back and put Hefty outside, because we don't have kind of the outside left position, because we don't have Hadji. Obviously, he's not in the squad. He's not in the European squad. It's going to have to be Barron and Raskin, I would imagine, as a sitting two if we're playing the 4-2-3-1. Czerny has to play. He's essential on the right-hand side. And you would imagine it's going to be Nadim Bajrami having to step up. And he does perform better in Europe as well, scoring against Malmo, the opener, after a few minutes. And he did really well against Nice as well. And you would think it's Egaman as the lone striker. But I don't know if there's a scenario in that situation. I'd maybe have Yilmaz playing on the left-hand side, the kind of outside left, the attacking left-hand side position. Or perhaps Egaman moves to the left-hand side, play off the left, and we have Dessers playing up front. I think that's a possibility as well as the lone striker. We have Cyriel Dessers, who's our top scorer. There's no two ways about it. This season he is a top scorer, but I'm running out of time, Rangers. I need you to do this. There's been 105 teams have been to the finals, have reached the final of a European club competition. Fairs Cup, Cup Winners' Cup, UEFA Cup, Europa League, Champions League, European Cup. And I've made it my life's mission. I've seen 76 and 8/11s. Never mind the 8/11s. That's to do with the London 11 select side. I just want to see all 11 London sides that had players in that select side. And that's the best way I've been able to do it. Dnipropetrovsk, I could have seen them at Easter Road as well. They played Hibs at Easter Road, but they went bust, and then the replacement club went bust, and so Dnieper is going to have to come up with another club that I can just kind of tack on. Dnipropetrovsk 2015 Europa League final appearance onto, but I have got basically 29 clubs that I need to see who've played in European finals. Now, 3 of them, Eintracht Frankfurt, I wasn't at Seville for that final, so I've still to see Eintracht Frankfurt, Roma and Athletic Bilbao. 3 of them are still in this competition. So I want us to get through and get them, because all the teams I've seen in this group phase are either teams I've seen before or have never reached a European final. And I'm running out of time because I'm either going to die before I can achieve that. It's a fluid list anyway. It'll always be changing, but I just want to have them all done once. I want to have seen every European club finalist at one point in my life. And UEFA is probably going to get subsumed by FIFA or a Super League and club competition as we know it. That'll probably die even before I do. But most of all, I just want to, and I want to see us win a European trophy. That I've got the thing that I needed now, which was to see Rangers in a European final. Was at Manchester in 2008. We've been back to another one since then. All that really remains now for me, even though I was alive, I was 2 years old when we won the Cup Winners' Cup. I want to see it. I want to see us winning a European trophy. I don't think there's any reason we can't. The way we're playing just now, we're suited for Europe. But this fixture suits this Rangers team in the way we play at this time. Big games, no pressure on us. Less of the ball, having less of the ball. I'm not bothered about the qualification scenario. From the moment this draw was made, this was the standout fixture. This is a chance for history of both kinds, the good or the bad. But Clement's kind of been building to this match. Everything about his reign has been building towards this match. If we get the Rangers team we want, that can beat Dundee at Dens and can beat Hibs at Easter Road after being 2 goals up and 3-2 up with a few minutes to go. Maybe it means this European run ends, this run of brilliant competence in Europe where we get fantastic results and great results, enjoyable games in Europe. Maybe that's going to come to an end. We've been enjoying it really since Steven Gerrard took over. But if we could just go out with this result, that would do fine by me. I would absolutely love it. Maybe this is the end of it though. Maybe this is where it comes to an end. I don't think it doesn't really work with bookendings and things like that. But for me, it's the bank job in heat. We are Neil McCauley's crew. We're Neil McCann's crew as well. If it goes wrong, we face a shootout with the entire LAPD. And we're going to be all close to 6 o'clock news for the wrong reasons. If we win, it's cool. And low 8 figures. We've already popped Waingro. We sorted out Waingro on the 2nd of January. He's not going to be a problem. So let's suit up and feel that the action is the juice. I would quite happily finish 3rd in the SPFL Premiership if we could win this game on Thursday night. This score is worth a stretch. But more than that, and I've made it an extra big, extra long pod. I'm just totally overindulging myself, folk, because as I say, it might all turn to shit tomorrow night, and this is the last I'll get to enjoy this fixture and the prospect of Rangers doing this. But I got married the day Manchester United won the Champions League for the first time. The day Manchester United won the European Cup for the first time since '68, the long-awaited. I was, my wife and I, we met at uni, and we'd been living the student life, and so it was a kind of, we're not going to have a big, we'd been staying together, obviously, we had a flat together and that, we still had all our uni pals and that, everybody was still working part-time jobs and things, so it was, let's not make this a big deal, we're going to get married, we'll make it a Wednesday, just for a laugh, put the fear of God into my mum and dad when I phoned them to say, we're getting married next Wednesday. All right, is it shotgun? No, just let them believe it was. But another thing was it was the Champions League final, and I used to have parties. Now when I was at uni and student digs, everybody would come into my place to watch the European Cup final. I always watched the European Cup final and then the Champions League final. We'd have like bets on the first time Manchester United would get mentioned or England 66 would get mentioned in finals that didn't feature an English club or never mind Manchester United. It was just a massive part of my life. And I know why I was obsessed with the Champions League final, obviously, just because Celtic had won it and we hadn't. But I thought the nicest thing I could do for my wife as well, just coincidentally, it was May. We just thought, let's just do it. And we went to the registry office. It's like, the nearest date, all the Fridays and Saturdays are taken until like the next year. Like, we don't care about that. It's going to be, we're going to just go to the boozer afterwards. And it was, let's make it the night of the Champions League final. So that was my kind of thing to my wife. I'm going to give up this tradition of watching the European Cup final just the night we get married. And of course, she's got a passing interest in football as well. So it was beautiful. It turns out it is the best day of your life. And so we had the family at the registry office, and then went for a meal with the family, and then all the friends and that came and joined us in the old West End. In Byers Road, what's the place called now? It used to be called the Living Room. Anyway, I think it was the Living Room. It was a kind of pub restaurant place that we quite liked. That's where we're having, it was basically we just got some grub in, and it was just a session in the boozer. We all were pals, and any family that wanted to tag along. But there was no telly in there. And my mate Andrew, he was mostly he played American football. He played gridiron and stuff like that, for the Aberdeen Oilers and stuff like that. But he liked Man United, in that kind of way that people who aren't properly into football would like Man United. But he was able to kilt and that on as well. He was doing this proud. And my missus, she likes a bit of football as well, but isn't too keen. She's just the commentary, the pro-English commentary gets there. It doesn't bother me now. But she's not keen. And Manchester United was the worst at that point in time. Just the love for Man U, the obsession with Man U. When you try to watch a game between any two teams in Europe, if it's an English commentator, so that kind of irritated her. So I love the German football as well. So my mate Andrew, he was nipping across the boozer across the road, which is now, it was a Tony Macaroni's, and then it became something else. But it used to be an old man's drinking pub back in '99 when we get married. And he was going over there and giving us updates. There was no phone. They didn't have the mobile phones in those days that was updating you in the results and things like that. So he was coming back over, having a pint, obviously, then coming back over, and he's like, the Bayern Munich are winning, Man U aren't doing too well at all. We just hit the bar as well, and he would go back over the boot, and then he'd come back in, he's like, Man U. And so my missus was quite happy just to hear that. She wasn't bothered, obviously, there was plenty of other people to talk to. But then when he come over, Man U scored 2 goals in time to win the thing. I was like, oh, that's great. There's been a properly exciting European Cup final, and I consider that a blessing on our marriage. Whereas my missus was like, fucking Man United, just can't get rid of the bastards. So my mate Andrew, he's dead now. I don't know if it's related, but he died in 2020 at 49 years old. He got the old cancer. And a win in Europe won't give Rangers domestic bliss, but it could probably supply domestic bliss for this particular European-centric Rangers supporter. I'll see you in the other side, troops.